Hi, readers. I'm Jordan,
And I'm Katie.
and welcome to Not Another Heroine, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines. We're not a one episode per book kind of podcast. We like to spend anywhere from 3 to 4 episodes breaking down the major plot points of each book.
And then there's a final episode, which is supposed to be a question and answer session, but is usually just a massive gossip fest about the book. This week, we're reading The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah, otherwise known as Bag of Infinite Space, character development sold separately.
All right, I'm just going to say it. My two favorite characters of this book are the two we get the least amount of time with so far. But we'll get to Aisha
Aisha.
and Omar later.
They're my two favorites too. That and we'll also get to him later, but Kadir
Oh.
gives me all kinds of like Pedro Pascal dad vibes.
We need to be introduced to Kadir first. So
yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Way ahead, Katie. Shame on you.
Sorry.
Right, we'll get to it. All right. We start on a ship of all things. Not what I was expecting from a book about desert adventures. And the Midnight Merchant, followed closely by her bodyguard Kadir, is about to complete an illegal magical transaction with a one-eyed businessman. I think his name is Rashid Al-Jasul.
Rasul Al.
Did I get that backwards? Rasul Al-Jashid?
Potentially. I will look it up. I have the book right here as I knock down all of these pieces of makeup. Anyway, long story.
But why is there makeup on the table, Katie?
That is a long story.
We'll get back to that later.
Yes, we will.
All right.
So I also forgot that they were on a ship to begin with.
I had to reference back a couple times when kind of summing this book up.
That's fair.
So they're on a ship. They're about to make this business transaction with the one-eyed businessman. And
that's his formal name.
It is.
Sorry, anyway.
So despite the presence of ominous and burly-looking mercenaries protecting the one-eyed businessman, the Midnight Merchant gets her money. The businessman gets his missing eye back, courtesy of a vial of gin blood, and everyone leaves happy. And shortly thereafter, Kadir turns into a tiny talking lizard.
So multiple points. So the name is Rasul Al-Jashin.
Oh, man. I mutilated that. I am sorry, Miss Abdullah.
Rasul. Two, for our listeners who have maybe not read the book, Kadir is a jinn. And it is kind of alluded to that jinn are not illegal, but they're the baddies in this whole world.
Exactly. I mean, we kind of break down the whole world structure a little bit soon.
Okay. Again, jumping ahead of myself.
Jumping ahead, Katie. I can't handle it.
But just keep in mind, dear listeners, that Kadir is a jinn.
He's a jinn.
But no one's supposed to know. A secret jinn.
He's just a
secret jinn of sorts.
He's a little talking lizard that can transform into a scary-looking man.
Yes.
Okay, so the general heartbreaking history of this world unfolds pretty quickly in the first couple chapters. Jinn walked the planet with limited powers, got greedy, demanded more power from the gods, received phenomenal cosmic powers, and then proceeded to wreak havoc on the planet. They were then banished beneath the earth while the surface became uninhabitable. Humans were faithful to the gods. I don't remember if this is a polytheistic society. Do you?
I am not sure.
And the humans struggled to survive in the harsh desert until they figured out that, jinn blood produces and heals life wherever it lands. Like vast forests, gardens, waterfalls, oases, plural.
Yeah, that's not ominous at all.
No, that is not going to have a happy ending.
The blood of these creatures makes habitable land.
Yeah, no.
Yikes.
There's a couple other tidbits. There's magical relics that are scattered across the lands.
I love this.
This is a cool piece. I enjoyed this.
Giving me all kinds of Indiana Jones vibes. Mm-hmm. And a little like sprinkling of the Mummy.
Oh, yes, the Mummy.
Yeah, where they're like kind kind of like swashbuckling, don't give a fuck about anything, but they're gonna like go in and steal the treasure and then sell it. But then like you also later find out that they have kind of like a heart and morals, and they're like not bad people.
So a bonus episode will be us reviewing The Mummy.
Ooh, it's a good movie.
It is a fantastic movie.
It's one of the few that I've seen.
True. It's Brendan Fraser. Like how can you not love it?
That is fair.
Okay.
Anyway,
relics, enchanted bottles, jewelry, whatnot. This is what the Midnight Merchant sells. There's and then there's two different types of jinn in this world. The Ifrit. Am I saying that right? Ifrit.
That is my guess.
Ifrit.
Let's see if the Googs will give us an answer.
Can you stop using the Googs?
It's called the Googs.
You're killing me. Okay, moving on from. Did you get the answer?
Googs is unclear. Ifrit is an impossible answer, just based on spelling. Ifrit. We'll go with Ifrit.
Okay, so the Ifrit, aka the Jinn Kings, they can pretty much do whatever they want with magic. And then there's regular jinn who are limited to particular types of magic, like
one particular type of magic.
One particular type. Mm-hmm. So shadows, fire, earth, death, etc. And then there's another story embedded in the recent history of this land.
Tell me more.
There's so much going on in this book, Katie.
There's a lot. And it probably sounds a little bit overwhelming to like listeners right now. Like, oh my God, so there's like jinn, but then there's like jinn intensified, like jinn squared, that are like more jinn than regular jinn.
Leveled up jinn.
But like when you're reading it, it's not scary or unapproachable. Like it's a pretty natural kind of like integration of magic systems.
All of the history is introduced slowly.
Yeah, tidbits.
Yeah, like here and there, and you kind of get this big picture in your mind at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
So we're kind of forcing it on you very quickly,
yeah,
just to kind of establish the groundwork of the story. For
all of you to understand what we're talking about later. Because we're obviously not Chelsea Abdullah as she's writing this story. No. So you get all of the aggressive parts up front.
And we're kind of not progressing in order either. You're giving you the history up front that's given to you over the course of the first half of this book.
Yeah.
So we can kind of progress through the storyline a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there's a lot of jumping around that happens.
You're gonna be like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces in this plot to keep track of.
Yeah.
So aside from all this Jinn world building backstory, there's this other story that's more recent. So there's the Sultan. Think of the Sultan from Aladdin, like the big ruling figure.
I wrote that on one of my sticky notes.
You're welcome.
We wrote, we got like physical copies so we could, write notes and put sticky notes and highlight and shit. And I literally wrote on one of these, this feels like Aladdin.
Disney Aladdin.
Yes.
I mean, did you miss my initial quote? Phenomenal cosmic powers. That's it. Oh my gosh, Katie.
This is not visually recorded, but I am blinking unknowingly at Jordan right now.
It's a genie quote from Aladdin.
Really?
Yes. Wow. Okay, moving on. All right.
Anyways,
back to this little story that was embedded in here.
Aladdin vibes.
The Sultan of our little desert kingdom is the evil Sultan from 1001 Nights.
Yes.
And if you're not familiar with that story, this is the dude who was murdering his wives on a nightly basis until he married Scheherazade. And I think in this story, her name is changed. It's like Shafia.
Yeah, Shafia.
Shafia. And then we meet him at the tail end of his story. So Shafia / Scheherazade has been dead for years, and she was murdered by some unnamed jinn.
Oh no!
Oh darn! And that was a little blasé, but
that's true.
It's okay. And the Sultan is on this revenge quest to track down a legendary trapped jinn king, trapped in a bottle, lamp, etc., and use their power to wipe out the entire jinn population.
And if you're not familiar with the story of Shahrazad, like 1001 Nights, it's basically that the evil sultan would get a new wife every night, and he'd be I want to say like uninterested in what they had to say, and so he would murder them.
Like,
the
you're
next
not pretty
night.
enough. Okay, you're gonna die tomorrow.
It's like, okay, I'm uninterested until he finally marries this woman, Shahrazad, who I think in the original story is like a Bedouin storyteller or something. Yeah, but she basically kind of not entrances him because that has negative connotations, but she's an amazing storyteller. And so for 1001 nights, she basically tells him a new story every night. And he's like, wow, you get to stay alive for one more day.
It's very dark. But that's where we get the story, several thousand years removed, of Aladdin and the lamp. She tells all of these little mini stories that we have a lot of fairy tales derived from.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the mini stories becomes the main story.
Exactly.
Which is the Stardust Thief.
Mm-hmm. So the Sultan has 3 sons. The eldest, Omar, who's an all-around jinn-killing badass, and the King of the 40 Thieves, also a Disney reference there.
Yeah. Don't get excited though, because he kind of has psychopath vibes.
Yeah. We're not quite sure what to think of him. Neither Katie or I have read this book before, and we don't know how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we think he's a psychopath, like Ted Bundy style.
Yeah.
So that's the eldest. There's Hakim, who's really the bastard son of one of the Sultan's wives and another man. So he's not really a prince. He's not the Sultan's son, but he's a prince, and he lives in the palace.
That's really sad. We'll loop back to it once you introduce the final.
Yeah. And then there's Mazen. Mazen?
Mazen
is kind of how I read it.
Yeah.
Sweet, simple Mazen. He is the youngest and only son of Shahrazad. Are you saying Shahrazad or Scheherazade? It's fine. We'll move on. He's the only child of the storyteller and the Sultan.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking that Mazen is a coddled man-child with a mommy complex, you're absolutely right.
That you are. Spot on. Strange.
Unfortunately for us, he gets to tell about half of the story. Because, he's the offspring of a famous storyteller.
So this book is, again, if you haven't read it, but you're listening to the podcast because you're like, I like how Kitty and Jordan tell these stories, and maybe afterwards I'll be interested in reading them. This book is split into multiple points of view, not told in the first person. So half of the book, we get the point of view of our main character, Luli, or the Midnight Merchant. And then the other almost half is from Mazen, the prince. And then the third point of view that we get kind of like sprinkled around is Aisha. We talked about her a little bit earlier, but we'll introduce her fully at the end. But also the whole Hakim thing is super fucking sad, because we get a little like explanation for like, okay, so this kid is a bastard, but he's living at the palace. Like, I've seen Game of Thrones a time or two. Like, that's kind of weird. And it's basically that like Mazen was like, hey dad, like I want a friend, and Omar's kind of an asshole. Like, can you bring this
That's exactly how it was. Like, Omar's an asshole. I need a friend. Fine, go get Hakim for me.
Sad. So like Hakim is like basically like shoved into this room, and it's like, the Sultan knows that it's like, you're not my kid, and Hakim knows that I'm not your son, but it's like good old Mazen just wants a friend. So
and
Hakim
Mazen gets whatever he wants.
Yep. Yeah, he's the total youngest child complex, the like sweetheart of the family. Like, of course, like you can get anything that you want.
And Hakim is classic middle child. Like, he's studious. He just doesn't make a big scene.
Mildly ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Hakim, super sad, basically shoved into the palace and told he can't leave. Anyways, keep that in mind.
Back to the Midnight Merchant, aka Luli, and her lizard friend. So Kadir is, like we said earlier, a djinn, and he's been with Luli since she was a child. He saved her after her parents and tribe were murdered, like significant life event here that resurfaces on a repeated basis throughout Luli's narrative.
Yeah, like murdered with a capital M.
Yeah, like dudes in black come and just destroy her entire Bedouin. I think she's a Bedouin too.
Yeah. Traumatizing foundational childhood event.
So Kadir has stuck around as a guardian / older brother figure ever since.
emphasis on guardian, older brother,
Mhm.
not romantic
No
interest.
romantic partner here whatsoever.
Despite the weirdly not platonic vibes at certain
Yeah,
points.
it's kind of hard to gauge, but it seems to be more of a guardian figure here.
Yeah, again, just imagine Pedro Pascal with the cute little baby Yoda.
Mhm. Together, he and Luli travel the lands tracking down relics that they sell at the underground illegal market because in this land, the only people allowed to possess magical relics is the Sultan.
Because Jinn are evil.
Jinn are evil.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a very good
Context.
point. Yeah. Fortunately, Luli has 2 magical relics herself, gifted from Kadir, a coin that reveals a truth or a falsehood, and a very all caps important compass.
Important compass.
Yep, that leads them in the right direction.
I love the idea of the compass because I think Mazin later in it kind of notes, he's like, wow, you got like a fucking broken compass? Like, that's not going to be helpful. And they're like, yeah, sure, broken compass. But you ask it to tell you, like, hey, I need to find X. Can you help me? And then all of a sudden, this magic fucking compass is like, yep, it's due north, bitch.
Help save Mazin's life several times.
Several times,
Yep.
yeah. So, magic compass that looks broken but is not.
Exactly. After Luli and Kadir's successful business deal on the ship, one-eyed businessman dude, she drops her midnight merchant persona and returns to her rented rooms in the city of, I'm going to ruin this pronunciation, Medine?
Oh, I like Medine. I thought it was Madain, but that kind of sounds almost Spanish. So
I don't know.
Medine.
Medine?
Yeah.
Medine.
Is that what you said the first time?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Medine.
So
done.
Okay. This is the stronghold of the Sultan.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get to meet Mazin. Like his perspective shows up in the story.
Woo.
I know. I can't wait. It's great.
So enthusiastic.
I mean, I can deal with multiple character perspectives in a book. But I think I'd like Mazin more if we didn't get to spend so much time in his head. He just comes across as this bumbling Pollyanna type. The author kind of pulls a reverse Princess Jasmine thing here. Like, yep, Mazin's whole shtick is that his father keeps him restricted to the palace unless he travels with an entire retinue of bodyguards because, like, I don't know, there's a human Jinn war going on and the Sultan's beloved wife was murdered by one.
And not at all like a reason for more increased security.
Yeah. So, like, of fucking course, Mazin wants to escape the golden chains of princehood and walk among the common people.
But also, he's an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, not good at anything.
Well, people are good. Jinn don't really want to hurt anyone. It's fine. All he wants to do is go listen to a famous storyteller at a random tavern in a not so good district.
It's not going to end well. Or, I mean, yeah, that's going to end great.
It's
like,
fine.
Fuck his dad. Why would his dad be so mean?
You're going to meet a handsome thief at the market who's going to offer you a loaf of bread with his pet monkey.
Oh my God. That was Aladdin. Got that one.
I'm so proud of you, Katie.
Woo.
Okay. Bad idea. Anyway, he, Mazin, admittedly has no training in swordplay or self-defense.
I immediately triggered me. And so later, for listeners, it's kind of revealed that he has no training in swordplay because his mom is like totally hippie anti-violence. And she's like, you can't meet violence with more violence. And so, like, for some reason, the Sultan promises her that, her son won't engage in any kind of like sword training. But she dies and he's
probably violently based on the descriptions we've been given.
And like somehow this like kind of asshole Sultan is okay with one of his sons being incompetent.
Yeah. Meanwhile, badass older son is an assassin.
Literally. Yeah.
Covered in blood all the time.
But it's like, no, it's okay. Like my youngest son is a precious little daisy and he does not need to do anything.
We've never experienced the youngest child dynamic ever.
I'm an oldest child and I'm triggered. I'm Omar and I'm a psychopath. Not really.
Okay. So older brother Omar is frequently pissing off the local Jinn with his Jinn hunting band of thieves. Yes. Like seriously, Omar's repeated description is that his face and clothing is straight with silver gin blood.
Ew.
Yeah, and the poor little prince thinks it's a good idea to sneak out of his rooms one night and venture into the bowels of Medine.
Again, so the older brother, I get they got the younger brother, older brother dynamic going on. Of course, the older brother is like, jealous of the younger brother. But come on, my guy, you do not know how to use a sword. You do not know how to even possibly throw a punch. And you're like, I'm going to go out into the bad neighborhood at night.
I just need adventures in my life. It'll
be fine. I have no way to protect myself, but things will go well for me.
I'm a smooth talker. That'll get me everywhere in life.
But he's like not even a smooth
He's not.
talker. Like
that's supposed to be his one like good point. His one selling quality
Yeah.
is that he's like very suave and debonair, but he never comes across that way.
No, he's like a good storyteller, which is he says he gets from his mother, which like, okay, cool. How often is that a usable
I've only seen it
skill?
once so far. Like, come on. And like,
yeah. And we read half the book before we recorded this episode.
So just as a side note, we read to chapter 31.
Yes.
If that's where you want to stop with us.
It's a great stop point, kind of a crazy cliffhanger happening. It'll make sense once you get there.
So there's Mazen hanging out the ledge of his bedroom window, ready to flee, when in strolls the dangerously suave and very smug Omar.
I love him.
I know. I can't help but love Omar in this moment. You know you're not supposed to, but you can't.
Yeah.
Like, you can't not. And what does Omar say? But I won't tell Daddy you escaped, but...
Oh, no, there's a catch.
There's
the
a
older
catch.
brother is demanding payment? That's
You
crazy.
betcha.
Weird.
So you'll have to owe me a completely random, no stipulations favor sometime in the near future.
I love that Mazen does not even blink. He's like, you have bullied me my whole childhood, but like, sure, I'm still going to go out. So yeah.
Staying true to character. Like, he spends all of 2 seconds weighing his options before trading literally anything in the world, like, for his devious older brother, like, that he can think of.
Which, like, later you come to realize how absolutely fucking dangerous of a decision that was, and he didn't even like blink. He's like, yeah, sure, like whatever.
That
Omar,
sounds
you're
like
not gonna get me
my brother,
murdered.
it'll be fun. Like,
it's like, you do realize that Omar and yourself both recognize that the Sultan loves Mazen
the
more,
most. Yeah.
but you're not even gonna consider, fratricide.
And okay, and this is all for a bedtime story. All Mazen wants to do is go to the market, hear this famous storyteller tell a story. And he's like, yeah, that's worth it. Totally.
He just wants to go to the club one night.
Yeah, because, he didn't get enough stories from Mom. Like, she of 1,001 stories. Like, that was a little mean.
That was savage. I'm not going to lie.
I'll restrain myself. I'll try in the future. Okay.
Anyway.
He agrees. Out the window, Mazen goes. He successfully finds a storyteller, chills at the tavern where, coincidentally, Luli also happens to be hanging out.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I know. They exchange greetings, and then he turns around and sees the most beautiful woman in the world, and she is beckoning to him.
I loved this scene because I feel like a lot of romance fantasy books, you immediately get introduced to whatever the love interest is, right? And they have this like immediate like, oh, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen. But like Chelsea Abdullah kind of pulls a fast one on you. Like, they're talking and it's like, oh, okay, like this is, potentially the love interest. Like, again, we've only gotten halfway through the book, but then it's like, oh, but there's this hotter woman that he is now enamored with and he's leaving.
Like, one
to go
glance
find her.
And he is sold.
It's like, whoa, she pulled a fast one
Yeah.
on us.
Like, he just has to follow her because clearly this goddess of a woman could only want a 22-year-old pampered rich boy. Like,
disguised as like just a regular dude. So he doesn't
What's
even
his
have
name?
the money.
Like, Yusuf is his name in disguise? Is that how he...
Yes. Yeah, Yusuf. And she's
Layla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're both using, pseudonyms from here.
Yes.
So Luli, motivated by equal parts curiosity and suspicion, decides to follow this lovesick swain from a safe distance.
Swain,
contrary to the recommendations of Lizard Kadir, who doesn't give a fuck about Mazen and knows something is afoot with this chick.
I love that Kadir. Oh my god! Excuse me, Kadir is just kind of like this exasperated dad figure the whole fucking book, or at least half the book, and he's like, you're just gonna do whatever you want, and I'm just gonna go like fuck myself over here, I guess. But like, I'm gonna rescue you, and inevitably, all of these plans go bad.
Exactly. He is the savior of this story.
Yeah, just the like big frowning dad
Yep.
figure.
So with this like goddess Jin, I'm kind of picturing this siren-esque woman as like a shot girl, like pouring overpriced vodka to people who are too like drunk, stunned to know how much money they're spending. Like, just come follow me. I'll give you some alcohol. It'll be fine.
What are they called at clubs?
There's a word I couldn't think of it when I was writing this.
I keep wanting to say call girl, and I know that's not right.
Is this going to be another glow stick episode?
I know. Promoter.
I thought that was
that's almost right. This is. Oh my god.
Side note. If you know this, let us know. It's not a shot girl. It's not a promoter.
I forgot the word again. What is the thing you break it and it lights up? Not a glow stick. A flare. This is flare part 2. Whatever those women are called in Vegas and stuff.
Not hating on them.
No, like girl, get your free club entrance, not having to pay cover and getting all this money, and all you have to do is dress up.
Yeah.
Not respect, like all respect for the drip. Anyways.
Okay. Hopefully we think of this name later on. But returning back to our story. So the goddess leads Mazin to an abandoned / empty building or temple, I don't remember what, where Luli creeps in to see that, yes, indeed, the goddess is a djinn, and she is pissed off. Like, particularly at Mazin, who she accuses of being a hunter who killed her people.
Oh no, I didn't see this going badly at all.
What? No.
All of a sudden, beautiful woman telling you to come into this abandoned building? This can only end well.
Yeah, of course, right? That's what Mazin's thinking. He's too dumb to know better. So shadows start to fill the building, and Mazin finally starts to realize that staying home in the nursery would have been a better idea.
He walks into this building, no skills, no like sword fighting. He's like, this is going to end well. And he's like, oh, it's not ending well.
You're pretty, but you're mean.
Oh no.
Right, keep in mind that in this moment, Luli has no idea that Mazin is the prince. He's going by Yusuf?
Yeah, Yusuf.
Yusuf. And Luli can tell, like, just based on their 5-minute interaction, that Mazin is way too soft to be a djinn hunter. So Luli like confronts this djinn goddess and tells her to back off.
I love that whole interaction because she's like, you're kind of soft. Like, I don't think this is your guy, my lady.
You're not a djinn hunter. Like, lady, find someone
the wrong
new.
guy.
Like, if the scary djinn lady weren't so ticked off, she probably would have patted Luli on the head and told her to like run along. Like, instead,
I think she does. She's like, why are you
here? Just go away. Go away, little human girl.
Some like good Samaritan thing going on where she's like, you really don't have to save this man. Like, what are you doing? And Lily's like, I know, but I am a somewhat moral person, and I see he's getting fucked up. Like, I need to help. And she's like, why?
And Luli, she's wearing these iron rings. Like, iron is a trigger for djinn. Like, they're allergic to it or something. Like, it'll give them hives. And the iron, I think, warms up when they're in the presence of djinn. That's how Luli knew that this chick was a djinn.
It's basically like, hey, heads up, my guy. Like, there's some djinn magic afoot.
Exactly. So poor exasperated Kadir, like still in gecko form. Like you've seen Tangled, right? Like, okay, I just picture that little lizard.
Exactly. Just exasperated the whole time.
Like, so there's shadows everywhere. Smoke starts to fill the temple, and Kadir scurries up to Mazin's shoulders, tells him to get the fuck out of the building, basically leaving Luli to see to herself, which she does successfully. And in the end, like, everyone is alive and safely away from the djinn. Like, djinn leaves, Mazin leaves, Luli leaves, no harm, no foul.
Which is surprising because at the beginning, you do not assume that everyone is going to make it out of this alive.
It seems very ominous from the start.
Yeah. You're like, Mazin's gonna die.
Or if he doesn't die, he's gonna get someone else
killed.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Mazin makes his excuses to Luli and claims he needs to return to the noble district where he works as a scribe. I roll.
Wow, yeah, very convincing.
Yeah, but he hopes to see her again to listen to another round of storytelling because Mazin can't help but notice that Luli is very pretty too.
This man, I
know. He departs. Luli follows him covertly again because her spidey senses are tingling and she manages to get all the way to the ritzy part of town following, Mazen, and he doesn't know she's following him until she turns a corner and nearly runs into, guess who it is? Omar.
I got good vibes.
When this scene happened, I'm like, oh, finally, this story is picking up. There's going to be a good character interaction. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yep, because I immediately am like, oh, okay, so thank God, Mazen's not going to be the other main guy in the story. We have Omar.
Hello, Omar. You're a murderous asshole, but we like you.
But potentially redeeming qualities. And then you very quickly find out, no, he's just a psychopath.
No, he's just bad. So here's the sticky point. Did Omar follow Mazen the entire time? Was he
oh shit.
Right? Was he just protecting his little brother, or did he use him as bait to lure out sexy Jinn lady?
Oh my God, definitely second. I have no doubt. He does not give a fuck about his brother.
Based on what we know of Omar, option 2 is way more likely.
Yeah.
In any case, Omar warned Luli to return to wherever she came from, and that is that.
They have kind of not a heated interaction, not a sexy interaction, but it's kind of those weird
tension
vibes. Yeah, where you're oh, he's telling her to stay away, but
do you really want to stay away? Look at me.
It's kind of one of those weird get out of here, little girl. And she's I'm gonna fucking fight you. And he's oh.
Yeah. Luli does not like Omar right off the bat.
Yes.
Omar is always described as wearing a smirk on his face.
Mm-hmm.
He's this bigger, burly dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's very much like a warrior, and he's always very smug.
Which is so from objectively speaking, that is not a good description of a person. You're okay, he's probably an asshole. But fantasy romance has programmed us to be oh, this is the love interest. But then Chelsea Abdullah is no, he's just an asshole.
Yeah.
This is a little, check in. No, these people are still bad.
They're really bad. Don't get enamored of this one.
Yeah, because by all of these descriptions, I'm oh, he's an asshole.
Okay, you put it perfectly. We've read so much fantasy romance that we are programmed, like you said, to look for these characters who are a little bad.
Yep. But morally gray,
but still big and bad and handsome.
But he's big and bad and handsome, but not morally gray. He's straight up
straight
not
psychopath. Dude is covered in blood, doesn't blink twice about killing someone.
Yeah, and he's very manipulative.
Oh, he's
not a great person. And
terrible.
Still, I'm still a love interest, but no.
This speaks either really well to Chelsea Abdullah's writing of this character.
Yeah.
If she's got a long arc for him through 3 books,
she's playing the long game.
Redemption arc coming for Omar, and we know we're not supposed to root for him, but we're still doing it anyway. Good on her.
Yeah, that's some impressive foreplanning. But some of these descriptions later, his interactions with Mazen, you're oh, I'm not supposed to find him sexy.
No, not at all.
It's oh, he's just straight up a bad guy. That's
kind of evil.
Sad. Anyway,
okay. And this is where it kind of gets a bit of a drag. And I hate to say that about a book, but we switch perspective from Luli back to Mazen. And if it feels like we haven't really gotten to know our heroine yet, then you're tracking along with Katie and I.
We feel the same things.
Yeah. All I know about Luli is that she's got some serious baggage from when her parents and tribe were murdered in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Kadir is her only friend and confidant,
Mm-hmm.
and she's got this vague romantic interest in a dude named Ahmed.
Yeah, not Kadir. It's not the it might be question. No daddy vibes.
No
going
daddy
on.
complex here. Just this random dude named Ahmed, who I think is mentioned maybe twice.
Yeah, and it's intriguing enough that I'm oh, okay, so maybe later we're gonna get Ahmed's POV. We do not.
No.
Spoiler. It's just some weird kind of vague romantic inclinations, and you're okay, great, because Mazen is not it.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it's described from Luli's perspective too. It's a vague romantic notion about Ahmed.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be intriguing if I actually cared about Luli at all. We don't.
Controversial, but yes, that is true.
Yeah, I know. We already know way more about Mazen's motivations and character than Luli.
But don't get it twisted, because Mazen is the most a white bread fucking character. Like
I love how you
I
describe this desert prince as a white bread character.
I have no sympathy. Like if he got killed off in the next page that I read, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's
So
how it
if we were
goes.
comparing, like Omar would be a loaf of brioche and Mazen would be Wonder Bread.
Yeah. Or Omar is like not a cinnamon roll because that has like sweet connotations, but something that you like know is not good for you, and you're like, I'm gonna taste it anyway, and
Like
then it like
pumpkin
poisons you.
spice.
Maybe like poison apple, where you're like, oh, it looks pretty good, and it's like, I know there's poison in there, but I'm gonna take a bite anyway. Oh, I got poisoned. Yep, it's
But
not a good apple.
I enjoyed the apple the
It just
entire
looks
time.
good from the outside.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, but Mazen's white bread.
Yeah. So
I could not describe him as a person if I tried.
mm,
Yeah, see, it's hard.
oh, Mazen. Well, Mazen, okay. Mazen goes out wandering the palace grounds. This is after he returns from Crazy Jinn Goddess. He's just out on a walk and he runs into Omar talking to yet another beautiful but scary woman named Katie. Aisha.
She has more personality in one motherfucking like pinky finger than
all of these
Mazen
other characters.
does
Like
in
even
the
Luli.
80 to 120 pages that I read.
Yeah. Like this is the most interesting character perspective so far in the book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because she does get her own POV where you hear from her perspective or whatever. Yeah.
She is a member of Omar's band of 40 thieves, and she joined after Omar caught her several years ago trying to pickpocket him.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a cute backstory. I mean, it's a sad backstory, but
it's a badass.
Yeah,
like,
the setup between her and Omar is like, okay, cute.
Yeah, this is fine. This is where the romance comes in, huh?
Yeah,
but in a not healthy way.
Yeah, Aisha comes across as a bit of like a snarky porcupine kind of a character, but she's still very loyal to Omar because he kind of he saved her from being prosecuted as a pickpocket, made her like the chief thief in his little band. And despite outright disliking Omar, she's in it for the long game. She's a member of his band and she'll do whatever he asks.
I love that dynamic where she's like, I don't like you. I objectively realize you're not a great person, but I'm going to be loyal to you because I have, morals and standards. And then there's some kind of like weird sexual tension where she's like, I'm not attracted to you. And he's like, I'm kind of attracted to you. And she's like, what? Oh.
Let me reconsider this.
Interesting.
And Aisha, she's described as a tall woman with very sharp angled features, like basically attractive but intimidating.
Scary. Scary hot vibes.
Scary hot. Omar asked her to deliver a message to the palace guard captain. I think it's the captain. It's just a leader figure.
The Cade.
The Cade.
QAID.
Yeah. Okay.
Cade.
The Cade. And Aisha is supposed to assure the captain that members of the Band of 40 Thieves will be attached to the guard forces to provide more robust protection for the city in the wake of a lot of recent Jinn attacks.
That's not suspicious at all.
Guard captain is obviously thrilled with this news, and Aisha is equally happy with serving as Omar's carrier pigeon.
That is sarcasm, if you did not pick up on that.
I will. Let me hit the button and enhance my sarcasm 10.
So immediately when I read this, I was kind of cued in to some like potential patricide, Omar setting himself up to be Sultan. And I don't know if that's where Chelsea Abdullah is going to go with it, but 100% the vibes that are like being put down.
Something shady going down.
It's like, oh, that's strange that you need to install these people that are only loyal to you and to the palace guard that protects your father, who you obviously do not like because he seems to prefer your younger brother, who is a total fop and doesn't do anything. That's not suspicious at all.
Oh my goodness. But you know what? This is super interesting. So guess what? Let's switch perspectives again and go back to Lily.
And I prefer Lily's
to
Mazen's,
but still, like I would rather stay in Aisha's perspective.
Yeah, let's just get the whole book from her fucking perspective. Okay, anyway.
So Lily and Kadir set out to set up their stall at the illegal midnight market. This is like their normal business. This is what they do on a regular basis without any of this underlying actions going on.
How they make their money.
Yep. Together, they wind through some tunnels, and I'm picturing like the underground tunnels in Paris.
That's how I describe. Yeah.
Like, okay, Hunchback of Notre Dame
Mhm,
with
mhm.
the Gypsy
Yep.
Caravan set up market. Okay,
Yeah.
they finally arrive at this thriving. I wrote bizarre, and it's supposed to be bizarre, where they are immediately recognized and hailed. Like, and she's in her guise as the Midnight Merchant, which is like in this persona, she always has half her face veiled, and she's robed in this midnight blue cloth with a dusting of like white sprinkles or sparkles or whatever.
Mysterious vibes.
She's got like eyeliner and everything. It's a vibe.
And it's funny too because she picks like some random spot and to set up her shop, and then there's two guys who already have their shop set up on either side of her, and they're both like, "Oh my god, it's the Midnight Merchant."
That is spot on. That is exactly how that goes down.
And then like even the younger one is kind of like, wow, like you're a little bit younger than I was expecting. And she's like, just wait and see. And then all of a sudden all these like crazy people come up and they're like, oh my god, it's the Midnight Merchant, I want to buy all of her goods. And he's like, holy shit. Like I think he has some sort of like pipe in his mouth, and I kind of imagined
it falling out.
Yeah, like some kind of like stoner with his like vape pen in his mouth, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, sidebar.
Well, okay, but that is a great segue into like she's doing business as normal, like sells a bunch of shit, and then like absolute chaos ensues, and they realize that the palace guard has discovered the entrance to the tunnels and are frantically searching for her.
Okay, because remember that selling anything Jinn magic related is illegal.
Yeah, this whole market is illegal, but Midnight Merchant in particular is very illegal.
Yes.
And then remember, the Sultan has this revenge quest that we talked about in the beginning to find the trapped Jinn King and banish all Jinn from the land. Well, he put 2 and 2 together and thought, the Midnight Merchant is the only person in my country who can find all of these magical relics, and she's doing it great. Why not make her go get the lamp? And I think it's a lamp. Like I defaulted to lamp.
It's a lamp. Yeah. It's like a weird I want to say ghetto oil lamp, and that's not just like an old school oil lamp. Because it's described he like in the story, like backstory of how this Jinn King was trapped into the lamp, which I think we get later.
Yeah, it's a little bit later.
Yeah. It's just some like random ass old lamp, and he's like, hey Jinn, like I'm gonna stick you in here.
And so it's stuck in there.
Yeah, it's not pretty, it's not perfect. He's like, this is what I had on hand.
Okay, so
yes, lamp.
Magical lamp, just like Aladdin. Sultan wants it, and he needs the Midnight Merchant to go get it for him.
Is that how our 2 storylines intersect again?
Oh, I have no idea. Let's continue. The palace guard starts threatening all of these poor black market traders and customers in the market until Lily bravely steps forward, realizing, of course, that all of the commotion is over her, and gives herself up. But not before she tells Kadir to get the heck out of there and find her later. So for some strange reason, she thinks that Kadir is probably better off not accompanying her to meet the rabid Jinn hater Sultan and his blood-streaked eldest son.
What?
No.
I also feel like it's worth mentioning my impression of Luli is also someone that's like good against their will.
Actually.
Those kind of people who are like, yeah, fuck other people, like I'm just looking out for number one, and then immediately upon entering into a situation where they need to put other people first, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to put other people first.
She's a reluctant good
yeah,
person.
but she's so mad about it, and it's like, dude, like you recognize that every time you're met with that decision, you put other people first. Like you think you're bad, but you are not.
No. And
it's that whole looks like a cinnamon roll is a cinnamon roll. It's like a quad chart, and it's like looks like a cinnamon roll is a cinnamon roll.
Are you hungry? We've gone from Wonder Bread back to cinnamon rolls.
Is a cinnamon roll but will kill you, and then it's like will kill you, looks like will kill you, and will kill you. Looks like will kill you, but is actually a cinnamon roll.
I can't follow this anymore.
She looks like will kill you, but is a cinnamon roll at heart.
Yeah, that's fair.
She's like, I'm mad and bad, but it's like, yeah, I'm gonna save you. I'm sorry. I just have to. Morals and
She does the right thing.
Yeah.
Especially for Kadir.
Yes.
Like that's a recurring theme. She always looks out for Kadir.
Which is adorable.
Yeah.
Because it's the inverse of the daddy protective vibes.
Mhm.
But he's also always exasperated that he's like, why do you keep throwing yourself into trouble and
I have to
trying to
save you
protect
every
me
single time. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
She's trying to protect him, but he
It never works.
inevitably has to come in and help her. Anyway, sorry.
No. That's a good summary of their interaction.
Yeah.
So Luli is on the way to the palace with her guard escort. She's like, I think, handcuffed, or the desert equivalent of being handcuffed.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, Mazen, Omar, and Hakim are all having a grand party with Dad, like courtiers and Tao.
Toe.
Like Toe.
But yes.
Yes. So while they wait for Luli's arrival, except Mazen starts to feel a little off, and he notices something weird going on with the shadows in the room. Like, sneaky little Omar is watching very carefully, and he seems almost prepared for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're a coward, he says to Mazen. Not that I disagree with him,
Yeah.
but along with several other snipey comments about Mazen's general incompetence and wishy-washiness. Mazen oddly notes that Omar's shadow is much nicer than its owner, and Mazen's own shadow seems to have acquired eyeballs.
That is not good.
No.
That is
If your shadow acquires eyeballs, you might want to run.
yeah, red flag number 1, my
Yep.
guy. So we'll kind of get into it in a second, but I love how this interaction is written
Mhm.
because you're from Mazen's perspective. And so you kind of feel as if reality is shifted, and you're like, I frankly cannot tell you what is reality and what isn't, because like Mazen isn't sure either. And so it's all of these like very scary interpretations and kind of like vibes that Omar is giving off, where it's like, is he trying to help me or kill me?
It's the most interesting perspective from Mazen that we get so far.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that it's only when it's in like a dynamic with Omar that all of a sudden he becomes interesting, because it's like, you recognize you're in danger, huh?
Well, okay, and that's because guess who's back? It's Jinn Goddess, and her special skill is shadow magic.
Akko.
Yeah, she full on goes exorcist on Mazen and takes over his body and brain, and she's out for revenge against Omar, who apparently viciously murdered her beloved Jinn husband.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
Yeah,
it was
like, you can't
not hard to read, but like kind of hard to read. You're like, oh shit, like kill him.
stop rooting for Omar at this point. And
Yeah.
also, like, okay, Mazen's interesting only when he's possessed by a Jinn woman.
Hot take. That is unfortunately very accurate. So he's interesting when he's not himself.
Yep.
Don't take that as a broader societal observation. You are good as you are.
Be yourself.
But this specific one person is not good as he is.
Nope. Poor Mazen.
Anyways.
Fighting ensues. Shadows take over the festivities. And I'm like, shadows like zombie figures taking over and threatening people.
Imagine some like kind of crazy, what is that one movie? Inception?
Yeah.
Where reality is like fucking sideways and you can't tell what's true. That's what's happening at this party right now.
Mm-hmm. Everyone becomes trapped in the hall. The palace guard can't or won't go in to intervene. But thank goodness we have Luli, who recently arrived outside the doors with her guard, and whose only credibility for battling Jinn is that she happens to be friends with one, so they can't all be bad. She demands to be released from her restraints so she can go save the people who have just arrested her and dragged her to the palace.
When you say it like that, all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, this interaction was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Very.
She had no credentials of any sort to prove her, but they're like, yeah, sure, like go in there. And
even she admits, she's like, she's not a fighter, she's not a warrior, she's just a business gal.
Yeah, but all of a sudden she has like moral courage, like more so than palace guards,
nowhere,
who that is their whole job, to save the Sultan.
And why is she motivated? Like, she doesn't know who Mazen is.
Yeah,
like she's
kind of like vaguely interested in a like, why is he lying? But like she should not be interested enough in a I'm going to risk my life to save your life kind of way.
Like it's weird.
Nope.
Yeah. She kind of succeeds though, with a lot of help from Kadir.
Emphasis on a lot of help.
So much help. So Kadir had previously given her an enchanted flaming blade, and he proceeds to whisper mental commands in her head to guide her through this battle with the Jinn goddess. She doesn't make much progress because, I don't know, she's fighting pure shadows.
What?
Yep, I know. Didn't think that would, go great. But don't worry, the murderous Omar is there to save the day. And he also has a special blade that successfully turns the Jinn goddess into a more substantial form. At which point he kills her.
By killing his brother.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. You forgot that Omar stabbed his brother?
I forgot that Omar stabbed Mazen.
Yeah, because if you think about it, so Omar is met with this kind of like moral quandary of, I need to kill this Jinn because he is trying to kill my brother and he's probably going to kill me and the Sultan. But in order to kill this Jinn, I must sacrifice my youngest brother. He does not even blink. He's like, anyway, so I'm going to like stab you and you're going to have to be cool with it.
But okay, is it really that much of a sacrifice? Because he knows Jinn blood heals all things.
So that's funny though, because do you have it in your notes?
I don't.
He is so Jinn blood heals all wounds, and so obviously, Omar is going to stab Mazen, who is being possessed by this Jinn, and they now have a dead Jinn body on hand to use said blood to revive Mazen. However, the Sultan is like, "Hey, Omar, like, what the fuck are you doing? You're kind of like dragging your feet, like." Go get the Jinn blood to save my son. And Omar's like, oh.
Do I have to?
Yeah. And it even says he like drags his feet over. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll go do that.
So maybe this is a little bit of foreshadowing for later on in the trilogy or the book.
Yeah, because Omar is like 100% prepared to kill Mazen.
I mean, I would kill Mazen at this point.
Like, yeah. I wouldn't say I'm gonna like kill him, but like if he died, I would not be sad. The very like indifferent. Yeah, what it's like hate isn't the opposite of love, it's indifference or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I am indifferent to you, Mazen.
Oh, poor Mazen.
Sorry.
Mm. Thank you for adding that bit in there because I completely forgot that Mazen.
But that's how inconsequential it is.
Inconsequential is a important word from Mazen.
Oh, fuck. Ooh. Okay. For our listeners, that's what this like shadow Jinn sexy lady is telling Mazen the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're inconsequential, which he is inconsequential.
He is. But the Jinn goddess like stamps that home.
Yeah. And now I feel bad because I called him inconsequential too. And it's like, well, if you're thinking that, then like maybe you are.
He is. Like, there's no doubt about it. Inconsequential.
Yeah. But again, not a broader societal observation. You matter, listeners. And I love all of you.
I respectfully disagree.
What? God damn. I am the, supportive daddy energy of this podcast. Jordan is the angry mom.
I can't even disagree with you. Okay. Back to
anyway.
Okay. I feel
Mazen.
like there was a epiphany that happened in my brain just now.
A little bit. But that's okay. I am not going to be formative in your, developmental years, listeners, but Jordan is. I'm just gonna like pop in and do the easy stuff, and she's gonna do the actual, literary digesting.
I can't wait to see where you keep going with this one.
And I am going to fuck up words that I don't know how to say.
You're gonna leave all the positive Goodreads reviews.
That is safer.
Okay.
Anyway, Mazen died, came back to life.
Thanks to the Jinn blood. And okay, I get the point of this Jinn against human thing. It's supposed to be this morally gray area. We're not.
And Mazen's like fucked up about it.
Yeah, he thinks that the Jinn are good or that there is some good in the Jinn. It's not like a black and white issue.
Yeah,
and we're not supposed to want to root for one side or the other. At least that's the impression I got from the author.
Yeah,
like having been given substantial evidence that both sides have fucked up. But this very thing, like this is an interesting point in the book, but it's what makes it so difficult to connect to the story. Like I can't attach to either cause, and as a result, I don't really care about the characters on either side.
Yeah, because I think it's supposed to be that because you're getting like Luli's perspective, and she obviously has like Kadir to like hang out with her the whole time and be protective of her, that you're supposed to be like, oh, Jin aren't all that bad. But there's so little character development that happens that it's like, okay, like Kadir is a Jin, and like I kind of get he has Pedro Pascal vibes, but he needs to like prove that he's Pedro Pascal before I
Root
like,
for
care.
him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's just proven himself to be a Pedro Pascal lookalike, and that's not enough.
No, not for this book. At least not to care. Like, to be completely honest, we had to slog through this first part
Yeah.
just a little bit, or a lot of it. It was a slog.
Aisha's POVs were fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The writing is great. The plot is
It's easy to read too.
Yeah.
But it's not engaging.
No, and I think it's directly because the characters, we don't
Yes.
learn enough about them.
Yeah, because the world is fun.
Mhm.
It feels like Indiana Jones, and you feel like you're on the cusp of like some crazy discovery, and you have to like run away from a tumbling boulder that's about to crush you. But it's like the people that are with you, you're like,
Yeah, it's
don't
not a
care.
traditional fantasy setting by any means.
I could see that. Well, how do you mean?
Like, for a lot of the traditional fantasy, like especially YA New A books with the romance underpinnings, it's like a Western European, sometimes Eastern European
I
like
could see that.
setting.
Yeah. I could see that because it does have if you just replace all of these with a Western perspective, like it has the underpinnings. But again, like the character development is not there. And it's fun. Like I was hoping the whole time that all of a sudden we would get these, character, and I get this is like a slight tangent halfway through the podcast. But I kept rooting for the characters to somehow have this like epiphany and have some sort of character development. And it could be that we're only halfway through the book as we're recording this. But from page 1 to chapter 31, they are the same.
Exactly.
They
There's no growth. There's
no.
And
so it's fun because I definitely feel like we do not have enough representation in romantic fantasy or fantasy romance that aren't white Western authors, or even like fantasy worlds that are written in kind of like that Western, context. But like we need some character development, Chelsea.
And just a little, just to keep us going.
Just a little,
especially since there's going to be 3 books.
Yeah.
And
it's also not like one of those things that you can extend out the whole 3 books. Like you got to give me a little bit of something to keep me going.
Yeah.
Because I'm starving.
Okay. The battle ends. Remember, Mazen dies, battle ends. An entire forest garden thing pops up in the middle of the dining hall, courtesy of the dead Jin's body, and Luli is shuffled off to get cleaned up somewhere in the palace while everyone has time to recover.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah. During or immediately after this battle, she, in fact, recognized that Mazen was the same boy from the market, Yusuf, and he in turn recognized her as the girl who saved him the first time.
Correct.
Yeah. When everyone reconvenes, it's to share another meal. The Sultan explains his quest to Luli and generously offers to pay her, but he is very clear that she doesn't have an option to say no.
That's true.
Yep. After all, like, she's been trading in illegal relics for years, and he could just as easily throw her in prison.
Yeah.
The Sultan also notes that Omar will accompany Luli on her journey.
This was the opportunity, Chelsea.
I wanted this to happen.
This was your shot, and as we will soon discover, it got fucked up a little bit.
This is for Lily's protection. Omar is supposed to go with her because
Which hot. I'll say it. Frankly, okay?
Yeah.
That is the opportunity for the psychopath to prove that he has some kind of like internal moral compass, sacrifices himself to save her.
Realizes Kadir is a Jinn and he's not a bad guy, and therefore all Jinn aren't bad. Like, there are so many opportunities.
Boom. And maybe she didn't want it to be like a, stereotypical fantasy romance, but like, this was your shot.
And it's wasted.
Yeah.
During this meal, though, we get another opportunity to see Mazen really shine.
We do. Sorry. That was unnecessarily savage.
That was sarcasm.
Yes, it was.
He tells the story of Amir and the lamp. Which,
okay. So this is a little bit of like
Yeah.
a redemption.
this is a fun diversion from the plot, and it gives us an opportunity to see the backstory of the all-powerful Jin King. Like, this was fun, and a lot of the
Mhm.
reviews that I read about this book said great things about these little mini stories that are
Mhm.
tucked in, and I thought the same thing. It was fun.
And for the listeners, she like legit pulls you out of the story. Like the following pages where he's like telling the story or whatever is written in story format as if you were reading a short story. And there's like even this like fun kind of like scroll background. So you're
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm like reading this on a parchment. And it's like there's no Mazen telling the story. It's legit from that storyteller's perspective.
Exactly.
Sorry to
No.
totally
No,
divert us.
I actually really like that piece. So I would still rather read this on Kindle just because the investment in the hardcover wasn't really worth it for me.
Yeah.
At least
that's
at the
fair.
halfway point. Like, I may
Mhm.
be proven wrong later on.
I hope.
Luli, anyway, agrees to this quest, thinking like if anyone gets their hands on this lamp, it should probably be someone who doesn't want to commit Jin genocide.
Mm.
And preparations begin around the palace for them to set off on this long journey. And that involves like going to these vast shifting sands of the desert to travel to the long lost Jin city. Very dangerous. They might lose their lives, but who cares? They're after the lamp. It's fine.
Oh no.
Yeah. And Omar, he's got his own plans going on. After they have this little powwow party dinner thing and everyone's like, okay, guess we're going on a quest, he shows up in Mazen's room one evening wearing a suspiciously gaudy bracelet and
Interesting.
carrying another matching bracelet.
Double interesting.
It's not a bracelet, it's a cuff, right? Like, that's
a bangle.
bangle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very out of character for Omar, whose only ornamentation is the earring he wears from his mother.
Again, the softball Chelsea Abdullah, you see it and you're like, I'm not going to swing at that, but it is a softball.
Mhm.
Like you have this character that loves his mom and his like only ornamentation on his whole entire body is like this earring that he got from his mom. You are lining him up to be a softie and you're like, no, he's a psychopath. Like,
Yep.
don't like him. It's like, I'm liking him against my better reasoning.
And Katie just had a meltdown.
I did. I will admit that was a full meltdown. But anyway, the Bengals.
The Bengals.
Not the football team. They're a football team, right?
They're a football team. Yes, they are.
Bengals as in bracelets.
I don't know where though.
I could not. I could name 2
that tells you how
football
good they are.
teams in No, I'm not convinced that the Bengals are a football team.
They're a football team. Okay, I'm gonna continue on. You look up the Bengals.
Okay. We'll come back.
We could
Again, people in their cars are probably like, are you motherfucking the Bengals. The Bengals. The Bengals?
not Bengals, Bengals.
Bengal with a B.
But-
Oh, the Cincinnati Bengals.
That's why it's Ohio.
Oh, sorry if you're from Ohio listening to this. But if you're from Ohio listening to this, you're like, I'm from Ohio.
Yeah, I'm listening to this podcast because the Bengals suck.
The Bengals.
The Bengals.
Anyway,
anyway.
they're bracelets.
They're bracelets, and he tosses one to Mazen and challenges him to put it on.
Weird. Why?
Poof. Poof, I say.
Poof.
It's a relic, and once it's been given the blood of a person, the wearer will assume that person's identity. Mazen turns into a much more muscly Omar with a deeper voice to match.
What?
Yeah, there's a body switch happening here. Parent Trap. Okay. No, not Parent Trap. What's that? Freaky Friday.
Yeah, Freaky Friday. Mm-hmm.
Why would I think of Parent Trap?
It's the same
era.
Yeah, and what's her name? Lindsay Lohan.
She was in both. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the continuing
We're comparing
thread.
Mazen to Lindsay Lohan.
No, I would not insult Lindsay Lohan like that.
Oh, that's harsh. Oh dear. Okay.
Anyway,
if you hadn't guessed, it is time for Omar to collect on the favor Mazen promised him.
Ooh.
Oh yes, Omar has absolutely no intent of going on the lamp quest with Luli.
He literally said, fuck that.
Yeah. No plans whatsoever. He's been coordinating what sounds suspiciously like a military takeover of the palace guard, and he cannot leave the palace now.
You don't say.
he promises to send his most loyal and effective thief with Mazen, who will be clued in on to the identity switch, because body double aside, there's no way in hell Mazen can pull off like a badass Omar impersonation without help. Like the dude has never picked up a sword.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get to it later, right? Who the thief is.
Yeah.
Anyway, thief, body snatchers, or no, wrong movie.
Body snatchers?
Freaky Friday? Yes.
Okay. Mazin doesn't really have a choice but to agree. But his sheer reluctance to go on the quest is like very frustrating for me. Like Omar.
Why?
Well, okay. Omar rightfully points out that Mazin has done nothing but bemoan his trapped life in the palace, and like this is his opportunity to see the world. But it's scary.
That's true, because we get nothing but nonstop fucking bitching from Mazin's perspective that he's like, I just want to be outside of the castle. But then again, this softball is lobbed to him. It's like, here's your opportunity. Like Omar doesn't want to leave, but he has to leave. So just take his body and go. And he's like, but I don't want to go into the desert.
Yeah.
You idiot. This is your opportunity. And you were acting like an ass.
Mm-hmm. Later that evening, we return to thank the Lord, Aisha.
God.
Yeah. So Aisha is hanging out in her own room. She's painting henna on her arms to cover up some scars. Super cool note. I really enjoyed that. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but Aisha's a neat character.
Because the henna, she has this whole like moment where she thinks about her like dead parents and her dead family. And we get this kind of like insight that the henna is all like flowers and pretty. But then later it's like, oh no, they look like thorns. And it's like, that's her personality. Like she, is doing henna to cover up scars on her arms, and they're beautiful flowers, but they're thorny flowers.
Yeah.
With like.
They're fuck you flowers.
Yeah. Yeah. Our fuck you flower, Aisha.
Yep. She is reflecting on her relationship with Omar, which seems to have some like possibly romantic underpinnings. When suddenly a visitor is announced, and of fucking course it's Mazin, dressed in oddly baggy clothes. He just bursts into her chamber.
Erg.
Yeah, what the fuck? Like that's her reaction.
Yep.
She grabs a sword, scrambles up, and is like quickly trying to shuffle through some explanations as to why this bumbling prince could possibly like be in her room. Like she's both embarrassed that the prince is in her like area,
because she doesn't have anything in her
she doesn't have anything. She's got like
she ain't got shit.
Very few personal things, and like, but then she notices this very uncharacteristic smirk on Mazin's face.
Girl, I'm like dancing in my seat. I love the fact that she immediately identified, like within seconds, she's like, you are Omar in Mazin's body, which is like a very outlandish thing to like immediately jump to. But she's like, I know that smile.
How well do you have to know someone to recognize their smile?
Yeah, it's like, girl, you got it bad.
So with a dramatic flourish, Mazin unclaps the bangle from his wrist, and poof, it's Omar. He explains the plan quickly, and really leaving no room for argument, he tells Aisha she's going with Mazin on this quest.
Yes.
And I wondered here if part of the motivation for sending Aisha on the quest was to remove her from the danger of the military takeover.
Money. That was what I was holding my finger up to ask, because I was like, that's kind of weird that Omar is, sending off his like best second most precious possession. Like the first is the earring from his mom, and his second is his girl Aisha. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally makes sense to keep her protected from obviously this bloody battle that is about to ensue where he kills his dad.
Yeah, like he brushes over the explanation, just emphasizing that she hates the palace guard anyway, probably due to her past as a pickpocket.
Weird.
Yeah, and she'd just be happier doing this. And Mazin needs her help. So all of the pieces are aligned for the quest to begin.
Interesting. Yeah, because that is money. I was wondering, I'm like, why would you send off your like most trusted person? Sense. And I was like, oh, if we have romantic underpinnings. Like I missed like 8 vowels in there. Underpinnings. It's probably because he wants to protect you. There is his redemption arc.
I hope
it is there. Again, a softball. Make him be not a bad guy.
We want to like Omar.
Please.
We hate Mazin.
Please. I'm exhausted.
And I think this is a good place to wrap up. This is chapter 17, right?
Yeah. So this first portion is going to be chapters 1 to 17. And then the next episode is probably going to be like chapter 18-ish to chapter 30, probably, if you're reading along with us.
So from our shelf to yours.
We'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Music. Thanks for listening.